and welcome to Down with the Browns. And welcome back to another episode of Down with the Browns. You're here with your hosts, Christian and Manny, and we got some important things to talk about today.
Man, there is a lot of news in the NFL. There's a lot of news going on. We're going to talk about it all for sure.
Oh, yeah. And just to get it started, let's just talk about our boy David Njoku getting the franchise tag.
Yes, the Chief. Oh, man, I'm so excited for him. I'm not sure exactly what him and his camp are thinking about this franchise tag, because I know that there's still a lot of money coming in. Obviously, for franchise tags, you're making the average of the top 5 players at your position. So he's going to be paid a pretty penny. And I think that I know that he probably would like the consistency or like to be here and know exactly how long he's going to be in Cleveland for and wants the longevity. But honestly, the franchise tag, I'm so excited to have the Chief back. He's a big part of our offense. He's explosive. He's well liked within Cleveland, and I truly believe that he loves Cleveland. NFL's Instagram showed him some love. Just, you're a pretty big part of the offense when they're giving you your whole own post saying that you've been franchise tagged and things like that. So I know a lot of other teams were having his eye on him and trying to see if he would hit the market, but great move. This was a huge win for the Cleveland Browns, bringing him back. And just trying to figure out where he fits into this offense moving forward, depending on what we're going to do with the tight end room for sure. What are your thoughts?
And, I really like Njoku. I'm glad he's going to be on the Browns next year. From what I've saw and heard, they're trying to get a long-term deal kind of hashed out. And I think the franchise tag was a smart move, because it gets David Njoku and his camp kind of feeling like, okay, they actually want me around. They like us here. So, and the rumor right now is he's going to get paid in this next deal. Like, it's going to be double digits a year. Yeah. Which is kind of expected. Yeah. One thing I didn't expect news-wise after the franchise tag was I kind of expected them to kind of be sending Austin Hooper on his way out. I kind of figured that, but they kind of came out in the middle of the night and they're like, no, we're keeping Austin Hooper. He's going to be around. Because the news came out on Austin Hooper that if he's cut on June 1st, that the Browns will save $9.5 million a year.
Yes.
And so, I was like, okay, yeah, that's a smart move. Just kind of give the money from Hooper to Njoku, and we'll ride it out with Harrison Bryant and him and whoever we get in the draft. But it looks like we're going to be riding it out with Njoku, Harrison Bryant, and Austin Hooper.
Yes, so. Yes. And that report came from, came from Jeremy Fowler from ESPN. It said, quote, Brown's plan is to keep Austin Hooper along with David Njoku, despite Njoku's franchise tag of $10.9 million. Hooper is due $9.5 million in salary in the third year of his four-year deal. That was per Jeremy Fowler, ESPN. But honestly, again, like I've said multiple times on Down the Browns podcast, I trust Andrew Berry. I love seeing him work through a lot of the chaos that comes with the off season, and he's a very intelligent individual. So it's one of those things that I'm not sure if they're using. They're going to use Austin Hooper's contract as sort of a potential trade bait later on, and are they bringing him to potentially trade him? And then if you trade him, are you looking into the tight end draft market? I know that there are a few tight ends in the draft that a lot of individuals do certainly like. There's Isaiah Likely, 6'4", 240 from Coastal Carolina, or there's Jeremy Rutger, 6'5", 250 from Ohio State University. Obviously, he's very familiar with the state of Ohio and its weather. So I think there's a lot of tight ends in the draft that you could potentially get if you wanted to move on from Austin Hooper. So, it's interesting for the time being. A lot of people think that it's a smokescreen, but however, the facts still lie that Austin Hooper is still here, and the Browns plan on keeping him, so to speak, for the time being.
I think that I think they'll try to restructure that deal a little bit moving forward, because I mean he's not lived up to the contract. Because I mean it's a top 5 contract in the NFL.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I believe they'll try to restructure that a little bit, cut it down. I'd say they'll cut it down from, because I mean I think he's due $12 million total this year.
Yes.
So I think they'll try to cut it down to like 7, 8. Keep a couple millions off the books.
Yeah.
So
would you how do you feel? Would you feel a little more comfortable? I know a lot of fans do not like to see Austin Hooper in a Browns jersey for the amount of money he's making. Some in general, regardless of the financial aspect, but would it make you feel a little bit more comfortable to know that he is coming back on a lower contract? Because if they do restructure and lower that contract number, because I know that in the 16 games he's played in 2020, he has had 38 receptions, second on the team behind Jarvis Landry. There's 61 targets behind Jarvis Landry, but at the same time, he is still 4th in yards behind TPJ, Landry, and Njoku. So it's like, would you like to see him come back on a smaller contract or not at all?
So it felt like in 2020, the year we made the playoffs, it felt like Austin Hooper was like becoming that dude. He was becoming tight end 1, like solidified it. Like there's no doubt he was being that guy. Right down the stretch, going into the playoffs, which he had really big catches in the playoff game against Pittsburgh, and then against the Chiefs. Like, I mean, there were some big plays Austin Hooper had, and we just all kind of expected Austin Hooper to have that same impact this year, and it just never happened. It felt like he digressed in his style of play, and he was dropping a lot more, falling, and it just kind of felt like he was going to be gone. Like the later in the season, it was like, okay, this guy's not going to be here next year. David Njoku's going to be tight end 1 next year, and it's But at the end of the day, if Andrew Berry says that's the guy he wants to keep on the team, then heck, let's ride.
Let's do it. I mean, I have full faith in Andrew Berry and his situational awareness when it comes to players on his team, and so. If he sees something for Hooper there, that's great. I don't know if you even want to change his contract into incentive based and just not make it comfortable. But at the end of the day, we all can agree it's sort of the same exact thing. There's this consensus throughout Cleveland Browns fans, just like Jarvis Landry, that Hooper is not worth the money. It's either you restructure and come back, and I think obviously Hooper is more likely to restructure because I don't know if he wants to exactly test the market willingly because of the season he's had, the drop off in stats. So he won't be exactly worth what he once was worth. But but I meant his stats for 2020 season. I meant for 2021. So that was last year's season. That was his stats for that. So.
Yeah, and just like for next year, I'm glad we're kind of keeping a consistent offense. We do definitely need to make some upgrades, but franchise tagging and keeping both our tight ends under contract for next year, it's just kind of a continuation. And speaking of tags, we have placed a tender on 3. Well, the Browns have placed a tender. We didn't do anything. The Browns have tendered 3 players on the roster, and that being wide receiver Jamarcus Bradley, inside offensive line Michael Dunn, and inside offensive line Blake Hens.
Yes.
And so how do you feel about them 3 players getting tendered for the 2022 season?
So obviously Michael Dunn and Blake Hens, offensive linemen, they came in and helped out when we were getting really thin and there was a lot of injuries on the line, especially to Jed and Hubbard. His injuries, they kind of helped out in that aspect. And I like what I saw to Blake Hens. He did the best he possibly could. There was obviously He's a valuable lineman that I like to have in my back pocket. And the way that I saw that he do some of his footwork throughout the games, I was impressed. Obviously, I would not want him out there as my starter, but he did hold his own when he was out there and his number was called. So bringing him back, I do like that a lot. Same as for Dunn. Not as much though, but Blake Hance I'm very high on. Jamarcus Bradley is, the wide receiver. He's 6 foot, 198. He's played in 5 games last season and had 4 receptions on his 4 targets. So I think, in my opinion, I would like to see him do a little bit more. I don't know if there's wiggle room for next season, because obviously wide receiver room is going to be something that we pay attention to. So I don't know how many reps he's going to get, but I do believe he's going to be battling it out with Anthony Schwartz, who I believe is going to be coming back better, much better. But I see why we kept him, just because, okay, we want to keep some familiarity in the locker room and not have a completely new wide receiver corps just going out there. Baker's not familiar with anybody. So, Jamarcus Bradley, 25 years old. So I he's a younger guy, but I like the tenders, and I don't have any problem with the guys that AB is bringing back. I'm curious as to who he's bringing in for sure.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're keeping some depth at the interior offensive line. I do not want to see Blake Hance ever playing a tackle position again.
Yeah.
He did all right when he's out there. But I want to see Hudson progress as a backup tackle, and then I want to see some more depth acquired at the tackle position as well.
Yeah.
Dunn and Hance, they're both smaller guys, so they're guards. So, when they were in the guard position, they did well.
Yeah.
The playoff game, Joe Antonio got COVID. Michael Dunn had to hop in there, did great.
Yes.
And then he goes down, and then a guy named Blake that Baker Mayfield had just said hello to right before the game goes in and just hosses it the rest of the games. And then we get our first playoff win since whatever year it was before I was born. So.
Yeah, it is definitely a good sign to see some of those guys back and try to give them another year to improve and raise their draft market for sure. Their value.
Yeah. And speaking of tenders and stuff, we didn't decide anything. The Browns decided not to tender Andy Janovich, the Browns fullback. And how do you feel about that?
So, I obviously in a league where the fullback position is becoming extinct, the Browns heavily utilized it more than other teams for sure. And I'm looking at some of the stats for Andy Janovich, played in 13 games last season, had 2 attempts. One was for a touchdown for 1 yard. And it's you don't even, I don't know. I think they're trying to make some more room, let him test the market, see if he comes, see if they can work something out, if they really like him or not. Mm-hmm. I don't know what this means for Johnny Stanton. It's one of those things did they see something they liked in Stanton? It's hey, do you want to have him come back? So I understand where they are going with this situation and where they're going with Janovich. I personally liked him, but I loved his toughness, his run blocking prowess. So, but if the Browns and AB, again, this is another situation where it's not as much as a head scratcher as the Hooper situation is, because that one I just don't understand what's going on there. Although I have a hunch, if I can guess and put something together, it's that he's going to be traded. But with Andy Janovich, I kind of understand this one a little bit more than anything else that has happened.
Yeah, and I totally agree there. I think that Johnny Stanton's going to be your next fullback next year.
Yeah.
And if he's not, I believe they go through not the draft, but I think it'll be a rookie free agent type deal. That they'll pick up somebody like that. So I think that Johnny Stanton will definitely be on the team next year.
I think so too. I
think they're really impressed with him when he did start and he had the chances. So,
yeah.
And it's awesome to see him because he's a guy you really didn't hear about him. He's been like floating around practice squads, and then he was on the Browns practice squad for a while. I mean, he was technically the first player that the Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski regime picked up.
Mm-hmm.
So
so he's younger than Andy Janovich. I mean, just by a year, but he is younger. Uh-huh. You know, he's a bigger guy than Andy Janovich is. You know, about by 1 or 2 inches, but 6'2" still. But I think I could understand and put the pieces together as to why they're more comfortable with Johnny Stanton than they are with Andy Janovich. And then obviously seeing the season that Dearness Johnson had, I don't know if it's really purposeful to have 2 fullbacks then at this point now, 3, like, you know what I mean? You can hand the ball off to 3 running backs. So it's like, okay, I know we're a run first team, but my goodness, we probably don't need to be paying Andy Janovich, Johnny Stanton, and, you know, trying to look what we could do with Dearness Johnson. So I'm sure that they're doing some financial wizardry and just trying to see where they can pull money from one person and shovel it off to another person. So it's going to be interesting to see. Once again, this is another situation that's going to be interesting to see moving forward, how it plays out. And we'll look back to this moment and say, hey, that was the move, and this is why it was made.
Yeah, and I believe that the Browns are taking a bet and on Johnny Stanton being that guy next year. Yeah. And speaking of bets, there was a situation that came out yesterday about Calvin Ridley. It's apparently he was betting and did a parlay. And according to Calvin Ridley via Twitter, it was a $1,500 parlay, which ended out costing him $11 million.
Wow.
Arguably the worst sports bet odds I've ever heard of in my life.
Yes. And so the NFL released a statement on Monday announcing his suspension. This is via Michael Rothstein of ESPN staff writer. So the NFL released a statement Monday announcing his suspension, saying Ridley gambled on games over a 5-day stretch in November 2021 when he was on the non-football injury list to address his mental health. So obviously, you know, I don't... Again, so I know he was betting. So rumor has it he was betting on the Falcons to win, right? And a lot of ex-players, a lot of current players, a lot of analysts on TV are saying, hey, well, if there's one thing that the NFL should allow, it's if you're going to bet, right, you should be betting on your team to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only thing if you're betting on your team to win, the only thing you're going to do is try and win harder, right? Because you know, you bet on your team, but obviously it's a dicey situation, so they're not going to get into that because it's still they have deals and things like that going on, especially when betting is becoming more legal in more states. So but but hey, man, Calvin, I'm sure there's a lot of players in the NFL who bet on the NFL fantasy or FanDuel, whatever the case may be, but they probably put it in a way where it's untraceable back to them, but it's like
they probably get somebody to do the betting for them.
Exactly. And you know that happens a lot because sometimes it's just like, you know, they have all this money. They're probably like, hey, to their friend, hey, how about you know, in your name, put this out there, whatever the case may be. But man, oh man, to lose to bet 1,500 on your team and to be just to cost the whole season. I don't know. To me, when I saw the suspension hand down, you know, I've seen a lot of people talk about it was extremely harsh compared to obviously other horrible and egregious offenses that other NFL players commit, and seeing their penalty compared to what this is. You know what I mean? You've seen Vontaze Burfict be, you know, suspended a whole year for hard hitting. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like, okay, we understand what's going on, but at the same time, if you're going to suspend someone for hitting someone really hard and suspend someone for betting for a whole year or for a whole season, it's like, okay, well then what is the repercussions for other things, compared to a situation like this?
So I think that if I was listening to Get Up this morning. I don't know if I heard this correctly or if I just kind of construed this in my head, but if I'm not mistaken, they were talking about that situation, and then they said that that's actually in the contracts, that you're not supposed to be betting. Like, you're not legally allowed to bet on the NFL as long as you're playing for a team. You're not allowed to bet on a team or the team you're playing for. So I think that's kind of why, and I think they're trying to make him the face of, like, you don't need to be betting.
You don't need to be betting. Yeah. And it's a shame that the hammer is coming down on the situation, because I understand why they're doing it, to set the precedent and set the tone and saying this is not.
Yeah, it's not acceptable, because if that gets out, they're going to go, oh, so sports betting is going to take a knock if that comes out, that a lot of people are doing this, and they're going to be like, oh, so it's insider trading. So then it gets into bigger legal allegations because they're causing their team to lose when they're betting, they're shaving points, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it hurts the sport, it hurts sports betting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a complicated situation, but they're going to make Calvin Ridley the face of that.
Yeah.
Going to try to point out, okay, if you do sports betting while you're on the team and you bet on your team, no matter if it's to win or lose, you're done. Like, because I mean, I think it says, like, if you get caught, it's banishment. Like, you could get banished from the league, never play again, and banished from sports betting.
Oh wow. So it's, and I have a side question for you. Do you think that there's a chance that they, as we get closer to the season, that they lessen or lighten up the penalty that was handed down because of everything that's going on and kind of the backlash that it's getting? Do you believe that the NFL will lighten up on it, or do you think and say, hey, we handed it down and it's more of a warning sign, but then once we get closer to the season, we'll make it 8 games? Do you think that that's possible, or do you think that they're going to stick to their guns in the situation and not budge?
They may lighten it up, but I think that they're still going to try to make him just kind of the symbol of that. Be like, you're not supposed to do this, don't do that. So I think the hammer's already thrown down. I think they're going to keep it down. They could lighten it up. You never know with Roger Goodell. But, I mean, he probably knew not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a known thing. Like, you don't need to be sports betting on your own team. But, I think that, I don't know if you're allowed to bet on other teams, or if you're even, like, I don't know the full thing. Like, I believe that's what they were saying on Get Up earlier.
Yeah.
Today, it was like, you're not supposed to be betting at all for NFL games. Like, you can bet on, like, NBA, MLB, whatever other sport you want to bet on. But I mean, I think that you should be allowed to bet on the games, but just not on your team, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. I think that if you wanted to bet, like, I certainly think that I believe it was I think it was Emmanuel Acho that I saw that from Fox Sports for the Wiley the Marcellus Wiley show with him. And so I think he was saying sort of the same thing, where it's like, okay, well, if you're allowed to bet, you can bet either on other teams because it has nothing to do with you, or you should be allowed to, if you want to bet on your team, you can only bet for them to win. But then, it's like, it gets really, really dicey. It gets really, really dicey, because what does the future of that look like? And I know a lot of people are saying, hey, if we're betting on the product, we don't want the product also betting on itself, right? Because that even, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's still, it's still weird. You know what I mean? It's like you're at a horse race and you're betting on the horses, and all of a sudden the horses are betting against horses, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like it gets weird. It gets weird, or So I think hey, it's a really sticky situation, and it's unfortunate that it had to be thrown down like this, and that I'm not sure exactly how Calvin Ridley was caught, but I know. I don't know for a fact. I don't know, but I would assume that other players are doing the same thing as well.
So from what I heard, he actually listed his account under his personal email.
No.
And that's how he got caught.
No way.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it. That will do it.
When you're betting, you probably need to be smarter. And if you did make bets and you betted on Russell Wilson to get traded to the Broncos, you are a very happy man today.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Extremely happy. There is a guy that's coming into town who is named Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, it is kind of crazy to think about the AFC now. Even if you want to look at the AFC West in a micro scale, like if you look at the AFC West in a micro scale, you have Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Justin Herbert and the Chargers, Derek Carr and the Raiders, and now you have Russell Wilson and the Broncos. And I think one thing a lot of people need to understand who wanted Russell Wilson in the Cleveland Browns and what have you, and are going back to the rumors in 2018, 4 or 5 years ago, right? Like they're going to have different kind of terms that back then than they were now. Obviously, Russell Wilson probably wanted to be in Cleveland at the time, but now there's a no trade clause, so he has to want to be in Cleveland. And clearly what this tells me is that he doesn't want to be in Cleveland in 2022 for whatever reason, right? So it's not so much the Browns dropping the ball or not giving up enough. He just doesn't want to be there, right? He just does not want to be there. And honestly, he's on a 1 year kind of dear loan unless he restructures or signs an extension that if he came to Cleveland, he would be gone the next year after because he doesn't want to be here. So, but with the Broncos, there's a lot going on to unpack. And I know it sounds very scary at first. You have to believe that the Broncos are going to build around Russell Wilson in the future. You have to believe that that's the case. But I've been reading into their roster, and I've also been trying to do some research and follow some of the fan bases that's going around Denver, and they are happy. Do not get me wrong. That is excited. They are excited beyond all belief. But a lot of fans are true and honest in saying that there's a lot more work to be done. He's a gigantic piece. Quarterback is the most important position in all of sports. Mm-hmm. And you have that solidified now. The problem is you got to get a lot of other things done, right? You have Jerry Jeudy and you have Cameron Sutton, and that's great. But, Javonte Williams is a great running back, but are you going to bring in another running back? Because you want to make sure that is running back room is solidified. So defensively, is Von Miller coming back? Like, he was saying stuff on his Instagram page. Like, there's a lot of still things to figure out for the Denver Broncos, because that division they're going to be beating each other up every single game. Like, I truly believe that any matchup within that division could be a potential Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football game. I mean, you know what I mean? You just because of the pure talent that's on both sides. Raiders maybe not so much, but really you look at you look at the Chargers, Broncos, or Broncos Chiefs, or whatever the case may be. It's star studded, and if they have Russ there for a couple of more years, they're going to make some noise. So it's going to be concerning. But right now, as presently constructed, I'm not as scared as I was when the news broke.
Yeah. I've kind of thought about it, and that's a really tough division, and some teams aren't going to make it. Like there could be two that come out of that division. There could be one. Like, you just don't know how it all equals out. And I'm glad that we played the AFC West this past season and not next year.
Oh my goodness! Absolutely.
Which you never know. Like, you may get MVP Russ.
Yes.
in Denver, but you may get last year Russ, where he wasn't. I know he was injured most of the year last year. I mean, that plays a big part, as we know, about injured quarterbacks.
Very well. We understand.
Yeah. And looking at that trade, the Seahawks got a pretty good haul in return for Russell. They got 2 first-round picks, which is the 9th pick this year, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and I believe Noah Fant.
Yes, Noah Fant is a name that sticks out to me. The name that sticks out to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, Drew Lock is probably, they're going to make him like a backup quarterback, or who knows what they're going to do with Drew Lock.
They may ride out with him. I believe they get their first-round pick next year because, which if they hadn't traded for Jamal Adams, they would have the 9th and the 10th pick this year.
Yeah, which is insane. Which is insane if you think about how everything turns full circle. And and honestly, the way the Seahawks are looking, man, that looks like a NFL teams are probably looking at that team like a kid in a candy store, because they're like, what can I pick? Who can I get? Can I get DK? Can I get Tyler Lockett? Can I get Jamal Adams? Can I squeeze Jamal Adams off your hands? You know what I mean? So it's like, I personally think that it's pretty much up for grabs. I would say, I think they probably looked at the situation, the Seahawks, and probably said, the 49ers are still going to be the 49ers. Trey Lance is looking comparable. And, I feel like they 49ers still going to be in place. Obviously, you have this, I almost said St. Louis Rams. Wow. They have the LA Rams still doing their thing, and the Cardinals. Obviously, hopefully there's no too much. We have to watch and see if there's bad blood with Kyler Murray, but D-Hop was out for a while, so they're going to get D-Hop back next year. And so it's the Seahawks probably said, you know what? Hey, let's take what we can get. We gave a lot for Jamal Adams. We tried to make it work. We tried to do this all over again, but it didn't. It was, we haven't recovered from not running the ball with Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl. So let's just end all of this and try to start all over with accumulating picks. So I think that it's going to be an interesting tactic, and it's one of those things to definitely look out for.
So I've been seeing some speculation on Twitter. It wasn't DK that they're talking about, but I would love DK Metcalf in Cleveland.
Yes.
Metcalf's belong in Cleveland. Let's just get that out there.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
But I can't remember who reported it, but I want to say it was Evan Massey.
Yeah.
He said that they're starting to take offers on Tyler Lockett and that they're open for business.
Yes.
And he is a very big. He's pretty good.
I like Tyler Lockett a lot. You start to, in situations like this, right? Very rarely when a star quarterback leaves, you start to question the remaining pieces that are left behind. This kind of happened with Brady when he left New England. The remaining pieces that are left behind, a lot of people want to jump at them and say, oh my gosh, like they don't have a quarterback anymore. Of course they don't want to be there. And Tyler Lockett is somebody that I really want. Obviously, number one was DK Metcalf, or is DK Metcalf, still is. I'm not even going to make it sound like it's not anymore, because he still is. Tyler Lockett is a close second. But then I start to ask myself, okay, you have to play this game that I'm notorious on this show for doing. Was it you? Or was it your system and who you were around and who your quarterback was? Because Russell Wilson, despite the stats that he had last year, is not a scrub quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a very good quarterback. And so it's like, okay, we saw Doug Baldwin become, a stud when he got to Seattle because of Russell Wilson. So it's like, I like Tyler Lockett a lot. He is 29. He's 5'10", 182. So he's a smaller guy, a little bit older, but depending on for the right price, you know what I mean? If we get, depending on the right price, honestly, I really would not knock it. What do you think?
Yeah, if we can, I wouldn't want to give like a second or a third. Like, I don't know if I'd want to give a fourth for him. If you could get him for like a fifth, because going back, if you look at the Jarvis Landry trade, we got him for a fourth and a seventh.
Yes.
And he's been our best receiver for the past 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So if we can get him for like a fifth, a sixth, maybe whatever, or heck, they may even release him. You just never know.
Yes.
But I think they're in that Sashi Brown mode right now where they're just trying to acquire as many draft picks as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So
it is definitely. It's definitely something to look out for next year because they're gonna like unload and collect picks, and it's a smart thing to do. You know what I mean? Let it ride out. Obviously, the LA Rams are going to flatline sooner than later. I mean, it's probably not going to be next year, but the year after that, once those contracts and they have no more picks, like they're going to have to let a lot of star players go to have some kind of picks and the latter half of the 2020s. So it's like, if you want to be somewhat, you're an LA team because, the Chargers might just take over that city if you just, like let everything go. So for sure, they're stacking up the picks over there in Seattle.
Yeah, and the writing was on the wall last year. It kind of felt like Russell, like the last home game he played, it kind of felt like it was like he was saying goodbye without saying goodbye.
Yeah.
And, it felt like it was going to be a fire sale after that. I didn't know that he'd be in Denver. I had this feeling he was going to end up in Vegas for some reason, but I guess their new regime wanted to rock with Derek Carr. Yeah. And now Russ is a Bronco. But if we can piggyback off that fire sale they're doing out there, if they're going to do a fire sale, kind of revamp the whole team, if you can get DK.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah.
I don't know what it would take to get a DK Metcalf. He's still in his rookie deal. He showed that he can be your number one receiver.
Yes.
It's, I really like DK when he was in the draft coming out of Ole Miss. I was really big on him until we traded the pick for OBJ. So, you don't know how it's going to end up. We may just acquire one through free agency or via draft or via trade. Like, you just don't know. Hopefully it plays out.
Yeah, you really don't know. And I truly trust, once again, how many times am I going to say I trust Andrew Berry? But really, these situations you have to, because it's like, listen, if there's a call that I can make right now, it'd be DK Metcalf. I want a 6'4" wide receiver who's proven himself.
Oh, yeah.
I really like that. A guy who can play in some of the colder weather. I know Seattle's a little bit rainy and cold there, so he knows exactly how to handle himself as a big body wide receiver, and he's shown that he can get a separation. I know that he's in a boot as of like 2-3 weeks ago, but he said he's going to be fully recovered in about a month. So about 2 weeks from now or a week from now, he'll be fine. And it's something that I'm really excited for. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Browns make a big splash very shortly, because there's just you really have to.
It has that feeling like, I've got that same kind of mood. I know Andrew Berry is not John Dorsey, but it has that same kind of vibe it did, like right around when Dorsey made the trade for OBJ. Yes. Like the writing's there, and you're just waiting to hear some Browns news. I think it's going to be for a receiver. I think that'll be the big splash. But there's you just hope to see the Browns name in the headline, and hopefully it benefits the team.
Yes.
Which today there was also there's other big news around the league that we thought was going to be the biggest news of the day, and then the Russ trade happened. It was Aaron Rodgers signing a deal.
Yes.
Which I thought it was 4 years, $200 million, but
that was the report at first.
According to Pat McAfee.
Yes.
And sources close to him, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers himself.
Saying that that's not the contract, but he will be back with the Packers for year 18. So how do you feel about that? Like,
I truly believe that as I've seen Aaron Rodgers' career progress lately, I'm not entirely sure what it's like his personality has just said, I don't care anymore. right? Like it's I just don't care anymore. And he has been playing and like puppet master kind of whatever hold on the Packers, just saying, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to leave. It's been a fun ride, posting to his story, The Last Dance. And then Devontae Adams posting The Last Dance as well. And it's like, guys, what on earth is going on in that situation? I'm sorry. If I was a Packers fan, I've seen, obviously we have Browns fans who tweet out things like Tom Brady's going to be here, whatever the case may be. So I know that there are tinfoil hat fans everywhere in every, organization, but there were some fans who were like, Packers fans that were saying, I don't even like Aaron Rodgers. The stuff that he's put us through for the past couple of years, couple of seasons. It's like, you don't even like, we don't know what you're going to do at all. Every offseason, we don't know what you're going to do. And then when you make a big fuss, the playoffs happen, and then you just don't win. It's insane. You have home field advantage, right? The weather is horrible. You're at home, so it's like, it's one of those things where I understand what fans are going through of the Packers, but I just don't like a quarterback holding that team hostage, saying, "I'm going to go. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go." So he's going to be a little bit older as well if he signs. I'm curious as to see the contract amount. That's one thing I'm really serious about. Like, I know was supposedly supposed to be 4 years, $200 million, but I don't know if it's going to, when it comes back again, I don't know if it's going to be that much. I think that Aaron Rodgers didn't want that backlash because I think that he might want to take less so that he can get more players in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that situation. But to be honest with you, I really wasn't that surprised that he went back to Green Bay. I just had that feeling, it wasn't going to surprise me. If he went to the Steelers, that would have been something that was like insane to me. That would have been right up there with Tom Brady leaving New England, so it's something to watch out for.
Yeah. And it's been a roller coaster, as you said. It's like, yeah, I'm leaving, and then you kind of heard Devontae was leaving, and then he's like, well, I want to go where Devontae goes, and you're like, and Devontae's kind of been linked to the Raiders, and you're like, how's this all going to work out? And it's just cause this kind of media whimsy, I guess, as you'd say, and it looks like he's getting locked up, and they franchise tagged Devontae Adams. So it looks like everybody's kind of staying put on that end. So I guess people can stop talking about Aaron Rodgers coming to Cleveland, Russell Wilson coming to Cleveland. It was never going to happen, but the Browns are going to stick with Baker. But there's going to be one quarterback that's going to be in speculation until about Friday, and that's Deshaun Watson. Yeah, because that court date's on Friday, and hopefully. I mean, I hope he's innocent just for his case. I still don't see the Browns trading for him because it's going to be a haul. Yeah, it's going to be more than the Broncos gave up for Russell. Yes. And so not to interrupt, but I just with everything coming out with Deshaun Watson and all this other stuff, it's like he's another person that he has to want to come to Cleveland, right? Mm-hmm. Like he has to, and we kind of haven't heard any whispers, besides fans of Cleveland Browns. We haven't heard any whispers that he really audibly wants to be in Cleveland. But it is a quarterback who, with everything going on, is a quarterback that I am more open to. I had my back toward, but now I'm kind of looking back, saying, if he's innocent of these, allegations that are thrown against him, I think it'd be something to really, really strongly consider. Yeah. Right. It's something that you have to consider. Yeah. So what do you think it would cost to give up for Deshaun Watson?
For some reason, the Texans remind me of the Philadelphia 76ers when it came to Ben Simmons. It's kind of cross sports, but it's like you want so much for this man that it's like we don't even want to even entertain business with you. You're turning us off from the trade because of how much you supposedly want. But I think obviously you're going to have to give up 2 or 3 firsts, right? Mm-hmm. I think that the Houston Texans want compensation back. They understand that their window is going to be closed for a while, and they want to prep once again for a new regime because they had all of those studs. They had the Hopkins, they had the J.J. Watts, they had the Jadeveon Clowneys at once upon a time. So they want to build that up once again. Mm-hmm. But they know that window will probably open somewhere 2027, 2028, who knows? But they're going to want a lot of picks, and you're going to have to give them Baker Mayfield. So that's going to be a given. Baker Mayfield, Dearness Johnson, not that they need another quarterback that has that initials are DJ, because they have literally 3 of them or 2 or 3 of them already, David Johnson and Duke Johnson. But so you want to, that you're definitely going to have to give up some of those pieces, and maybe a second round pick, or maybe the third round compository pick. So third round comp pick. So it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a hefty amount that the Browns are going to have to give up. But if Deshaun says, I want to play in Cleveland, and he is cleared of all those cases, to be completely honest with you, if those 2 things happen, mm-hmm. If we hear him say from his camp that he wants to be a Cleveland Brown, or the Browns are one of his teams on the radar, I have make it happen. Make it happen.
Yeah, I just don't know if Barry would. It would have to be a good deal for the Browns future. I feel like Barry takes that into consideration too, is the future of the Browns. I know Deshaun's he's younger than Baker.
Yes.
Which the Browns did trade the pick to the Texans.
Yes.
To take Deshaun Watson.
They did.
So
they did.
It'd be kind of coming full circle.
Yeah.
Which Andrew Berry was actually on the staff that did make the trade back.
Yes. So
but
it's one of those things.
if he is cleared of all charges and the process right, go for it. You're still getting a young quarterback. He signed under contract for a while, but he does have that no trade clause. So he would actually it would be kind of like the Russell situation. He would have to want to come to Cleveland.
Yes.
But the only thing I think that would be the problem is just the media behind everything.
Oh my goodness.
Because you're going to have the Big Ben jokes that have been how everybody's kind of accosted Big Ben for the last 16 years. That'll be around the Deshaun Watson camp and Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, I hope he's cleared of all those charges. I hope he didn't do all that stuff that's been rumored. But if the price is right, he wants to come to Cleveland. I mean, let's do it. I just don't see Barry hopping off of his word. I feel like he's kind of content with Baker, and just it would take a lot to get Deshaun, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think that it's one of those complexes that, for me, it's like your next door neighbors, in a sense, are all getting new cars and having babies, and then there you are with, your car's paid off, but it's like, it's not as nice as everybody else's. And then everybody else is still getting nice cars, and it's like, man, oh man, they're preparing for an Armageddon, no pun intended with the whole arm part, but they're bringing in quarterbacks left and right, and it's it makes you, and you're looking at yourself and saying, man, I am a run first team, right? I just, in today's NFL, and now your conference just got harder, much harder, right? It's not your division, so thank God that Russell Wilson didn't go to the Steelers. But I still think that I still have high hopes for the Browns, in their position for the playoffs next year. Obviously, moving forward, Browns have to win that division, because, there was one point in the season for about 2 weeks, I think it was either last season in 2021 or 2020, where it looked like 3 AFC North teams can get in the playoffs, maybe even 4 at one point. I think it was last season, but it's because it was so tight, you just had to have everybody win. So it's AFC West teams, speaking of the Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, and Chiefs, depending on if the AFC looks like it did last year, if it looks the same in the conference-wise in the standings, you could have 3 of those teams, be in the playoff chase, and they're just taking up room and spots and wild card spots. So, 2 teams will be taking up wild card spots. So honestly, the Browns have to win their division next year, and for the foreseeable future. And so we're going to see how that works out for the Browns. And I just one of those things that I just feel something in the water that's happening. It's going to happen. There's going to be a big thing that happens, and I hope the Browns are going to address the wide receiver room this week.
Yeah, and I hope that there's something big for the Browns in a positive way, because we're so used to big things happening, but in a negative way. Recent. But if I just feel like we're going to roll with Baker, I'm not going to get my hopes up over Deshaun Watson, kind of like the same way I wasn't going to do it with Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. They're obviously the more talented quarterback, but, it's just easier to keep Baker, in my opinion. Keep all your assets.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a week from free agency, so everything could be changed. By Monday, we could have big free agency, wide receivers coming into Cleveland, and
absolutely.
And speaking of some free agency wide receivers, well, we thought they were hitting free agency. Mike Williams got franchise tagged and re-signed to a 3-year, $60 million deal.
Money.
40 of it guaranteed.
Money.
Yep.
Money. He is a $20 million wide receiver. And to be completely honest with you, I know we have talked about Mike Williams a lot on this show as a potential free agent wide receiver. But for $20 million, $4 more million than Jarvis Landry, to bring him in, when I saw that number, I was like, LA Chargers, you got it. You got that one, man. You got me there. You got to put your hands up and say, I mean, to keep him there across side Keenan Allen, I think, and to have a bigger target, and Justin Herbert's used to him, and Justin Herbert likes Mike Williams. Mike Williams getting the money he I guess he deserves, but it was that to match that would have, not necessarily that you had to match it per se, but if that's what he was asking for, right, or that's what they was negotiated. And that's the thing that you guys came to. And I know the Chargers have a lot of money to play with, but it's like, my goodness. Justin Herbert must have said, don't you dare let Mike Williams walk. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think that I like Mike Williams a lot. I liked him a lot for the $13 to $14 million a year range, a little less than Jarvis Landry, and have him obviously make it an incentive base with a couple of million, depending on what he reaches in his first year as Cleveland Brown. But $20 million a year, $40 million guaranteed. I think that's definitely a pretty penny for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I was actually thinking we'd have to pay him about 16 to 17,
right?
If we were to get him, not the 20, right? Not the 20. No. Yeah, and there's another receiver that got franchise tagged as well. Chris Godwin. So it looks like the free agency carousel of wide receivers is not going to be nearly as good as we all kind of thought it was going to be due to franchise tags. But it's kind of looking like Amari Cooper is going to get released so that Cowboys can kind of finagle some contracts out and get Michael Gallup back and sign all their free agents.
Yeah. So there are, besides Allen Robinson, I think Allen Robinson and Amari Cooper are really the big names that stand out to a lot of fans right now. So as potential wide receivers. So,
which there's another guy I really like. I think it kind of confirmed that he's going to hit free agency in the Jacksonville Jaguars, franchise tagging their left tackle Cam Robinson.
Yeah.
Which means DJ Chark's probably going to hit free agency.
Yeah.
Hopefully Hopefully. I'm a big fan of DJ Chark. I want to see him in a Cleveland Browns uniform. I see him as the $6 to $8 million a year type of receiver.
Yeah.
Get him 3 to 4 years, maybe 3 years, 30 million with like incentives, and like do like a guarantee like 7 million a year, something like that. So that's one receiver I really like, and I've been high on him since.
Yeah, for sure, and I'm sure he's going to have a lot to prove by coming off that injury last season. So I think that bringing in a guy like that will be, and a young guy at that, so he's only 25 years old, and I know that he's only made $1 million $1.1 million last season. So it's like bringing a guy in like that for a less expensive price, but a guy that has been out there a lot, I think that would be very, that'd be very beneficial. And even if you wanted to, because obviously Christian Kirk is not even an option anymore either. But if you wanted to see if you can bring in a Cole Beasley, a veteran presence, we talked about that last time on the pod. But DJ Chark is definitely somebody that I would like to get my hands on now, especially with everything going around, because it's Amari Cooper might cost you a pretty penny. Yeah,
and DJ Chark just has an AB top signing on him. Like, that's just how I feel. Like, he's an AB signing. Like, he's good. He's not flashy. He's not over the top expensive. Yeah. Kind of like how Anthony Walker was last year. Like, he was the solid player, came in, did his thing, and so he just kind of has that Andrew Berry type feel to him.
Yes,
to me.
Absolutely. And honestly, I like also the size for DJ 6'4". I really like that, because that adjusts a little bit of my size that I'm seeing too as a concern. And that gets me really pumped. And so if that is a signing that they go with, that's an underrated signing. It probably won't be the biggest thing on NFL. It won't break Twitter, but it's something that like Amari Cooper signing would be. But it definitely is something that I would really like to see. It's safe, and it won't cause a lot of attention to the wide receiver room as a big personality, because
and I feel like that would be I don't think he'd be your number one receiver. I think that you sign him if Jarvis Landry is going to be back, and that you think that the guy at 13 is going to be your number one receiver next year. So I think that's kind of the route. If you see DJ Chark coming to Cleveland, I think that's the route they go.
For sure. Absolutely.
And, I think that's the conclusion of our episode today.
Absolutely, man. It's a wild one, and I'm sure we're going to be hitting up the podcast again, hopefully later this week, to talk something else. Something exciting comes into play here for Cleveland, because there's going to be some moves made after this. There's definitely going to be some moves made. Yeah,
there's not like a lot of pressure on AB and Stefanski to make a move, but there's kind of some there. Like, you're just like, okay, all these teams are improving. We need to see something.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I think this has been a fun episode. We got to talk a lot about what's been going around the NFL and what's happened to the Browns lately. So, been some big news this week.
Absolutely, and it's only going to get bigger too, starting next week when free agency starts. So,
tampering starts on Monday. Yeah, and go Browns.
Go Browns.
My team, we gon' get along. Orange and brown, running the town. AFC champs, I'm loving the sound. Ready for steal, ready to rave, ready for fall, ready to bang. See us, we coming, we styling, we locking, we passing, we running, we touching it down. Cleveland, the city, we good, we did it, we been through the gritty, we loving the Browns. Never will chill, never will lounge. We are the dogs, we are the hounds. Never the fears, we blew and we bleeding, so get on your feet, cause we are the Browns.